What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time discussion. I'm Emery Cuzzy, and today's super exciting. I mean, every time we do mock drafts, we kind of predict what we think teams are going to do. Well, today we get to decide as GMs what we're going to do and what would we do mock drafts. So super excited about today. This is one of my favorite times, one of my favorite videos overall, just because I do so much research. We do so much research throughout this off season, learning about these guys, learning about these teams and where they should go and what we think. And they're not going to do anything like what we think as a GM, what we would do as GMs, but we get an opportunity to tell you all what we think, and that's fun to me.
Yeah, M hit the nail on the head. We are playing the role of GM today. Instead of doing AFC versus NFC or something of that nature, because there are a pretty decent amount of runs of just straight up conference, 5 in a row. So we want to keep on, going back and forth as much as we can and make it a little less predetermined and interesting. We have not discussed anything off of the air of who or what we're going with. Trades are open. We have evaluations for each pick. The draft evaluator chart in front of us. Trades are able to be made. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But Emery is going to be doing the odd team. So starting with the first pick, he will go. And then I will be doing the even teams. I will be starting with Cleveland. And then if we need to be doing trades or any kind of, spontaneous activity, we will go ahead and move forward. So
of course. And so I'll pull it up on the board. We're actually going to be using PFF's mock draft simulator, one of the best simulators out there. We really use PFF a lot, and so absolutely appreciate them for putting this all together. This style is a lot of fun, and it shows off a lot of different things, analysis of who might get picked at what spot. I am first to go, and I get the opportunity to pick for the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is not going to be trading back. It is what it is. They get the opportunity to take the best player in the draft, and that's kind of where I want to go. A lot of people want to go Cam Ward here, and I'm okay with that idea, but why? Cam Ward would be the seventh best quarterback if we just took the last 2 years in together. I'm not going to take that. I think that the next year's set of quarterbacks are pretty good. I think you just can find a better option at the end of the day. I would get younger at positions that are of need, and Abdul Carter is our number one player in our draft, so that's who's going to be on my pick. I know I can understand Travis Hunter here. I can understand, of course, the top quarterback option, but Abdul Carter is the guy that I think just makes the most sense. He makes me the most excited if I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and hopefully they can find a quarterback of the future maybe later on, but I like building other positions more.
Yeah, I can't fault you for that. I kind of had a hunch that we would do that, or you would be going with that. That was actually what we did in our mock 1.0. Obviously, things have changed, and Cam Ward is a heavy favorite to go one now. But I don't fault you at all for that. Tennessee has plenty of cap space going forward, very few contracts, but they still do have a very weird in between, paying half into older players or maybe a little overpriced players, but then they do have some good building blocks. So I don't fault you either way that you did go. But I get to make the more difficult decision, which is Cleveland. Obviously a tough situation to be a Cleveland GM after Deshaun's trade has just been gone so awry, and they've made the moves to do what we did. So Joe Flacco, reuniting with Cleveland, obviously took them on a playoff run when they were the number one defense in 2023. That's not going to stop me from taking a quarterback here. I know it is a little early for our board, but I view this similar to what Denver went through, where they had the biggest cap hit in history, dead money out the wazoo galore, tough division, and yet in year one they overdrafted a player but got cheap there, and it allowed them to build depth around other spots. And then all of a sudden, less than a year later, we talk about them as a top 5 roster in all of football. And so Cleveland, they've got a lot of work to do, but we have the number one draft value of picks in this draft. So it's a heavy just draft some starters kind of draft, and that's what we're going to do. But we're going to start it off by securing the quarterback of the future and getting cheaper at that position to where Deshaun, you're just going to have to eat it, and we're going to have to figure out a way to get off of that. But until we do, we need to get better, and it's going to start with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I understand this pick completely. Cam Ward for us is, I can't remember off the top of my head, he's in the definite late 30s on our big board. Like you were saying, it's kind of a reach, but I have seen him in other big boards much higher than that, including here in PFF at 21. I think that if you're going to go quarterback, like taking a shot on this guy makes a lot of sense. He has upside, and he's going to have to figure out how to work with this team that he's got. But interior offensive line's not bad. Trying to figure out the outside of the offensive line, left tackle DeJuan Jones is coming from the 2023 class that they brought in. So hopefully he can step up. You have some good weapons. It's just more so they're not great at anything on this team. So, like you said, getting younger at positions of high price is I'm completely on board with that. I believe that drafting those positions is a big deal, and then going into free agency and buying some of those other positions is a good way of like building your team out. So I'm completely with you going Cam Ward. I think obviously the other option was going with Travis Hunter. So
right, and it's a tandem thing because at this point you got to move forward with you got to draft somebody, and I just like the pairing of Cam Ward plus somebody that probably will be falling to the second pick of the second round as a value, more so than taking best player available here and then like a Tyler Shaw or what people are mocking to round 2. I've heard weird names that just don't deserve to be drafted that early. I just don't like that combination nearly as much as just, hey, you got to reach it a little bit here, but then now you got 10 other picks to just go forward and get about 4, 5, 6 starters, ideally.
And it's minus 350 right now for 3 quarterbacks to go in the first round. So if you didn't go quarterback here, you would have to obviously move up to get the next guy, and that would be what I expect to be Jackson Dart in the actual draft. So just taking him now is fine. Absolutely, completely agree with that. So going Cam Ward, I'll put him in. And there he goes. All right. And then the Giants are next. I know that our board shows Mason Graham as our number 2 player. I think Mason Graham would be an awesome tandem, of course, between him, Dexter Lawrence on the interior for them. But at the same time, I think that the best way for them to get better is not at the interior spot so much. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, who may or may not be there in the next couple of years. Excuse me, my bad. Thibodeau could be moving on from. I know that, of course, on the other side you have Brian Burns. I think they spent some money at those interior positions and like this side of the ball. So bringing in Paulson Adebo from New Orleans, Dante Banks, okay, and then Drew Phillips actually had a really good year last year. So I think adding to this secondary is a big deal, and then giving Malik Neighbors a running mate on offense that I really think it propels them. So the pick is, of course, Travis Hunter. I'm not actually looking for a trade here. Like, I think that if you're gonna sit here, you're gonna be like, hey, let's just get the best player in the draft for the positions that we think are the biggest needs. Being able to have hitting two birds with one stone is kind of the way I look at it. I think 40% of him on offense and 90% of him on defense, and getting the most of him in that way. This is a team that actually makes a lot of sense for that, rather than maybe in New England or somebody like that coming up in the next few picks. I just feel like he's a good fit. And if he's number 1 on this board, obviously, in a lot of boards, I think he's right there. He's a blue chip player. I just want to take the talent and the versatility that he brings to the table and run with it.
Yeah, I think the Giants just kind of start getting a little bit more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Malik Neighbors obviously blew it out the water with his incredible rookie year with awful quarterback play, but you did bring in Russell Wilson,
right,
Jameis Winston, who, if anything, will be more competent than what he had to deal with previously. But you can't just rely on Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton to just be all you have left. Tyrone Tracy did fine, but he did have some fumbling issues. So in his rookie year, enough to where I don't think that they're just going to ride with him and nothing else, because Devin Singletary obviously was a 1-year deal moving on. So fine with that completely. I think that's if there is any kind of blockbuster deal in the top 5, I think it is for one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. If they slide to 3 or 4, that is probably a very likely scenario in real life. But in this reality, we just don't view the interest to trade a high capital to invest in one Travis Hunter at this point.
Yeah, and I like you're saying too. Like, I don't know that going all the way to 3 makes a lot of sense for teams, and the teams we would be talking about, and I'll go over here. The Raiders are an option. Carolina is an option. You could make a case for some of these other teams like
I'd say
the Saints, Chicago.
They've solved a lot of needs, but at the same time, I'm completely fine with it. I think New York, in the long run, I think it'll work out for them not having to invest in the quarterback this early.
One thing I also want to say is I don't know that Travis Hunter should be considered a number 1 option on a team. If you're talking about offense at wide receiver, and this is the best place for him to go for that. I also thought, and I told you this the other day, I think my favorite place and landing spot in for him is Jacksonville. I don't think he'll get there, but going to Jacksonville, he is a true number 1 corner and possibly the best one of the high-end number 2s in the league with Brian Thomas. Same thing happens with Malik Neighbors here. So I think that that's important. I don't think it makes sense for him to go to a New England where he's the number 1 guy, because I don't know that that is the best option for him long-term overall. So that's a big thing for me too, is why New York made a lot of sense.
Gotcha. All right. So, yeah, we'll move on to number 4, which is the New England Patriots. Obviously did a ton of spending in free agency, had the most cap space, and still do by a huge amount, by over $25 million, and there's basically no free agents left to spend on. It's going to be unfun, unexciting, going to have to reach a little bit again, but still a left tackle need that has not been resolved yet, and we're just going to ride with Will Campbell.
Okay.
There's concerns of short arm length, and all I'm saying is with him and even Kelvin Banks, nobody has brought that up like he plays short or small in their film. It's just straight up you're reading the number, is what it is. So they've done a lot of evaluation on him, and at this point we do view it a little bit as a reach. He's 12th on our big board, but it's the need that cannot just go unresolved, at least in the first pick or two, and I just don't like any option on the back end that I think can reasonably fall to us.
Right.
So that's where I'm going to go with the 4th pick.
Yeah, and I think this is the beginning of where picks get hard. Obviously, if you look at the first 3, you take the best 2 players, and then you get a quarterback of the future for a team. I think that New England has the hardest pick here because, like you said, I think it's a reach. I do think it's a Mike Vrabel pick, though. I believe that is a very Mike Vrabel, get after it, run game type of guy. It also takes away some of his lacking in the pass game when you run the ball as much as Mike Vrabel likes to. So I think it makes a lot of sense for those reasons. I do think it's a reach, obviously, because he's a guy that's a little bit lower on our board and isn't necessarily my favorite tackle even in this class, but playing the position he plays, could move inside. They need quality. That was something I saw the other day. I was watching a mock draft, and it was a what would we want to do mock draft, and they took him at 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was more so no matter where he plays, he's an improvement. If he plays left tackle, right guard, center, whatever, he is an improvement to your offensive line. I think that's the same thing here. So I completely agree with you. I like that pick just for improving any position, even if it's not left tackle at the end of the day, because they were awful last year.
All right, so yeah, we'll finish up with the top 5 here. Jacksonville on the clock now. I think this might be a short, sweet answer, but I'll let you take the wheel.
Well, I think I put some top options, and we'll talk through some options, but I think truly Travis Hunter would be my favorite pick here, like I told you. But if it's not Travis Hunter, our number 2 player on our big board is Mason Graham. And I think, if you're just talking about defense, 34 sacks last year, 28th overall. That's pretty rough. And they have good pass rushers, so I don't know what that was about, truly. 132.6 rush yards per game, 25th. 257.4 pass yards per game, 32nd. Just get better on defense. However you have to do it. And Mason Graham is the best player. I just wish he would get to the Raiders in real life. I also think the Raiders need a lot of other things, but Jacksonville can take, a guy like Mason Graham, put him in, and add to their defensive line with Josh Hines-Allen, and then on the other side, Trayvon Walker, who hasn't really hit his ceiling, but I think he's getting better. And they actually they've done a lot of drafting at this position in the last couple of years. Mason Smith out of LSU last year. So adding Mason Graham to this defense, you get a absolute stud, one of our favorite players. It's pretty easy. He's the 5th overall pick if he's there, in my opinion, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, with Jacksonville, it is purely best player available on the top of their board. It's just going to have to be somebody that falls to them. They have holes everywhere, and I mean, at the end of the day, if they take a single player that we have like as a likely top 10 pick, even if they went for Ashton Jeanty, a Tyler Warren, a first ed, or
Will
or
Johnson
second
is
edge,
one that I really
corner.
thought
That's
thought
way
about
back when we had that as a slot there. Like, they have needs everywhere.
Yeah.
And so if they reach on any of these guys, like you said, it's quality, and you're getting a good player, even though you got to do a premium on him.
Mm-hmm.
But Mason Graham is our second player on the board, and he's been there basically every time that we've done mocks since. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I was worried because I think New England, if they were like, hey, we'll take the best player, like if it's BPA and you were just like, hey, I'm taking BPA, Mason Graham was off the board. I don't know what Jacksonville's like true like pick would be.
Right.
And I was actually thinking about that because I do think there is an opportunity for someone to trade to 4 and take Mason Graham because they know that Jacksonville's going to take him. If the Raiders move up 2 spots and take Mason Graham over Jacksonville, like that wouldn't like be crazy to me. It's not something I'm going to predict because that's like kind of the odds of that are probably really low. Mm-hmm. But what does Jacksonville do if Mason Graham's off the board and Will Campbell's still on the board is kind of the question, because I think Tyler Warren would be fine, but Will Johnson is probably my most comfortable pick there. Is like just throwing Will Johnson out there, getting another cornerback for this team, and going into it that way. So I thought that was an interesting conversation we might have had to have. But yeah, Mason Graham is obviously the pick if he's on the board to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a true wild card. If Mason is off the board at this point, and it's Will Campbell on the board, like you said, because Will Campbell could go there and improve, but I don't know if they view him as like the best player available, because I don't think everybody would be in love with him. We've seen Mimbu jump to some people's O-line or tackle 1 in this class, so.
Which is where we're kind of at. I mean, he's above Will Campbell is what I mean. Josh Simmons is our number 1, but Josh Simmons has been injured, and it's like, are you willing to take the chance on him? So.
All right, so the way it organically worked out is I'm picking his team, he's picking my team. I am up first. It is the 6th pick. We've kind of seen this head just be the chalk.
Okay.
And I'm just going to ride with it because I don't think that there's a more glaring need on this team than at running back. You have Sincere McCormick and a soon-to-be 33-year-old Raheem Mostert at the helm. You need to get more dynamic, and there's nothing better than taking the best skill player to me in this class. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders just feels like a Pete Carroll pick, and I think it would just, I know if we get to draft night, you said you have a gut feeling that this won't be a thing, but if you end up landing on him and you have Jeanty and Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers to build around, I don't think you're going to be truly upset.
I want to push back on this pick because I don't think it will happen. Mm-hmm. And I've said that, like you said. The reason we have some holes, obviously, on our team. And that's the biggest thing I'm going to push back on is like our number 2 wide receiver is Trey Tucker. Of course, we have our tight ends, and our tight ends are important because they do a lot for us. But our number 2 receiver is Trey Tucker. Our 3 receiver is Ramel Keaton. No one knows that name, truly. And then I wanted to also bring up the fact that our starting cornerbacks are DeMarcarian Richardson and Jacorian Bennett. So those 2 guys, much lower on my favorites list also. We brought in Eric Stokes. That never worked out. I think that those positions, and that's why, of course, Travis Hunter being on the board at 4 would be a big deal because the Raiders would move up to get him. Those positions are just a big deal to me over a running back. I'm a believer, and we have this conversation, I feel like every year, but I'm a believer in when it comes to running back, your team has to be able to maximize the running back. I think our line's good, so I'm not against the idea that we could maximize them. But it's just he's not going to move the needle enough, in my personal opinion, to win enough games, especially in such a deep running back class. So that's my only pushback against it. And I would obviously not hate having one of my favorite players in the draft. It's not that.
Yeah, I think it'll just kind of be depending on out the gate. I mean, I just view the Raiders as a potential sneaky turnaround team. I've seen a couple people be like, hey, they're, a sneaky dark horse to finish second in the division because it feels like everybody's just playing for second at that point
Right.
in that division. I don't necessarily know if I'm on board with them, but I truly am more optimistic, I feel like, than you, that he could make a positive impact very early. We've seen it. There's kind of a resurgence at the running back position, and I mean, longevity wise, that's a different story because he has taken on a huge amount of carries.
Yes.
And who knows? Like, I don't know if he can have the longevity like a Derrick Henry could have, but at the same time, if this is a now thing, and hey, for a couple years, if we have Pete Carroll for like 3 to 4 years, what are we going to do with it? I think, an answer to do that is to go with G&T.
That's fair. Absolutely. I think everybody's a little bit harder on their own team too, so maybe that's a little bit why. But
we'll see how hard I'll get back. I like yours a little more than you like mine, but
that's fair.
Yeah, we'll jump forward. Now it's your turn.
Easy.
The second New York team.
This is the easiest pick, man.
Yeah.
So easy. There's two options, truly, and at the end of the day, that's all I see. It's either you go with right tackle, and I think that right tackle is Armand Membu, or you go Tyler Warren. And the reason you go with Membu is because both Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses were free agents, unrestricted free agents. Right tackle is wide open. They did add one right tackle, so I don't want to just say that they aren't thinking, but Okorafor hasn't done great. Becton obviously didn't work out at right tackle, so Membu just offers the athletic upside that I think is perfect for a Justin Fields style offense. And that's a big thing to me too, is like when you bring a new quarterback in and you pay him for 2 years, you want to bring a guy in that can also fit their style. Mm-hmm. You have Olu on the left side, who we really liked last year and was in a similar ranking range as we have Armand Membu this year. So that would be my one of my guys. And then my other guy is Tyler Warren, who I think could just be the wide receiver 2 for this team. He does everything. He blocks. He does all the things you want to see. He's very George Kittle-esque. Mm-hmm. And he's basically going to have, he's a cheaper contract than a wide receiver 2, even after 4 years or 5 years after you get the, that. And this is a value pick too. But at the end of the day, you have to go right tackle. You have to protect Justin Fields, and Armand Membu is the pick. But I do think that there is a very big conversation for a Tyler Warren being a number 2 wide receiver for this team and trying to help out your young quarterback.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm on the same boat with you that it's just between those two. What is your preference? And just Membu, glaring right tackle need that just has not even been addressed yet since they did lose Morgan Moses. So, I mean, I don't fault you at all. That's what we've been mocking there. If you went Tyler Warren, I wouldn't bat an eye because I think it would be awesome for him too. Mm-hmm. They do need skill players in this draft, whether it is at receiver or the tight end or sneakily running back because Breece Hall is suddenly in trade rumors. So all those kinds of things make sense. But, yeah, right tackle is definitely where I would have gone if I was the Jets.
Glad we agree.
All right. So now Carolina, I think this is one that it's kind of been a chalky thing to put edge here for a lot of people, but it's not the edge that we would prefer.
Yeah, fair.
So this is going to seem a little early for others. We don't view Jalen Walker as a top 10 caliber player. He is lower on our big boards, and we have somebody actually in our top 10 I think would just be as productive, if not possibly more. And it's the leading sacker last year in 2024 is Mike Green. Marshall alum that jumps all the way into the top 10. I just think that they addressed a lot of needs, and I'm kind of here. I'm between receiver to help out Bryce Young, or I'm between solving the edge because they did invest twice in the interior defensive line, mm-hmm. but they didn't do really anything at edge other than, you got Jadeveon Clowney another year, you got DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones. I need more out of productivity. So they need to do something. They've got solid building blocks in the front 7, but they're just missing a pass rush. So I think hitting this a couple times in this draft, I think makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to start off by doing it with one of our favorites.
No, I completely agree with that. I think he's the perfect Like, if you're going to talk about adding a 3-4 outside linebacker too, DJ Wanham was 95th out of 119 edges last year with a 55 grade. You have to get, and you paid him. Like, it's on top of that. So you have to get more production out of those things. We, of course, had Derek Brown, who got injured, who plays down on the interior defensive line. But you need more rotational edge pieces, and Mike Green makes it cheaper. You're probably going to move on from Jadeveon Clowney. And like you said, we have Mike Green in our top 10 or top 11, and most people have him around 20, but we believe in his talent. So I completely agree with the pick. I think it's a great pick. If you were going to go wide receiver, like you were saying, I think it's obviously a little bit of a reach, but I wouldn't have faulted you if you would have gone wide receiver. I know that there's some guys in their receiving core that could use an upgrade. And of course, you have an older Adam Thielen, but you do have two guys from the 2024 draft that are there. So.
I still view it, even though his draft stock is taking a hit. I still view this as like the first potential spot for Teteroa that I would not mind at all.
Fair.
Because Bryce Young truly needs another weapon, and right now Xavier Legette really was one of the more disappointing first-round rookies, or not first-round rookies, but wide receiver. There were so many wide receiver rookies that took off last year, and he definitely did not take advantage of his opportunity.
Right.
Adam Thielen's aging, and then after that, it's just kind of a lot of meh.
Yeah,
so,
fair.
Yeah, we gotta help him out if you're gonna truly invest in him, and that's why I decided what I did.
I love it. I love Mike Green. You know that. So,
yeah.
Adding him to the Carolina Panthers, I get to go next. I have
It's your team to have a cap held team.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm not like, honestly, this is one of the hardest teams. Like, I started the draft and I was like, oh, that's an easy pick. That feels easy. This is where it gets a little bit harder. You're replacing a bunch of old dudes. Taysom Hill, 35. Cam Jordan, 36. Demario Davis, 36. Tyrann Mathieu, 33. And all of those guys added up, like, they have a lot of cap hit. So you have to kind of replace some of those guys. And then also they had the 30th ranked defense with all those names that I just named. So, there's some options here. Obviously, we can talk about, going through them, but my biggest things are Mike Green was one of the options, so he's gone. And then defensive line and corner are two guys that, kind of shout to me of like, we need to improve these things. They do run a 4-3. Brian Breesy was 114th out of 118 defensive linemen last year. And then, yeah, it's awful. Godot was 85th out of 118. So not good. If you just look at their edges, you have Chase Young, who's behind. And I would have liked Mike Green if that was a possibility. But cornerback is another thing. They're cornerbacks. Kool-Aid McKinstry was solid last year for being a rookie on a team that needed help everywhere. He was fine. But on the other side, Alontae Taylor was the worst cornerback in the nation. He had a 45 overall PFF grade, 116th out of 116 cornerbacks. I'm going to go to the cornerback position here. I know that the other option would be going inside defensive line, so Walter Nolan is a guy that we have pretty high on our boards. But I think that Will Johnson actually makes the most sense in this spot, kind of giving them, two young cornerbacks. And hopefully, we can get the Will Johnson of 2023 that we really loved watching, and, defensive player of the year or defense of MVP in the national championship game. So that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Will Johnson in this pick. And I think, there would be opportunities to trade back here, but will someone move up, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think Will Johnson kind of falls into like the lap of, and, I think that he's on our big board at 10, so it's not really a reach, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Will Johnson, there's a couple of guys that can be in this category, but just guys that are just starting to get overlooked just because of nothing or no real reason other than just they don't have the recency bias, and just like we're overthinking it a little bit. And Will Johnson, to me, is our quarterback one in this class. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. So all the injuries that he's dealt with, and at least all the cornerbacks that were injured last year, had down years, most of them were significant injuries. He had hamstring, very ankle short-term stuff, And so, yeah, he hasn't really participated because he's had these minor elements, but that shouldn't really take a huge hit on your draft stock when you're that much better than the rest of the class, at least in my eyes. So, yeah, I completely agree with the pick here.
Yeah, and also they're gonna probably move to a 3-4. So adding a Walter Nolan might be okay, but I think moving to a 3-4, you want more like outside linebacker type edges,
Right.
and so that's kind of my other thought process is like, why would I try to get a guy that might not fit early in his career if they do change their defense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am up now with Chicago. Before I do get into that, I did lie previously when we explained the setup. So we are doing a snake draft
Right.
portion as a separator. So every time we do 10 picks, we are reversing the order. So I will be starting with Chicago, and then I am flipping to San Francisco, and then Emery will be doing the even picks, and then we will do the same thing at 20
Right.
and 30 as well. So that was to help also keep it a little back and forth and switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to start with Chicago. I think this is sneakily a tough spot because I don't really know what is a huge pressing need for this team. I mean, obviously it was offensive line before the offseason started. Bam, Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer. Like, that's what they did on the interior. And then on the outside, Braxton Jones quietly was a top 20 tackle per PFF last year. Darnell Wright, still on a rookie deal and former first rounder. So at the end of the day, their line is pretty much kind of set. And then defensively, defensive interior, a couple of huge signings in Grady Jarrett and Dio. Ode Yingbo out of Indianapolis is where he was recently with. Solid linebacker core. We also recently extended Kyler Gordon, so not much need in the secondary as well. So I'm kind of in a tough spot. I am telling you, I would not mind a running back here.
I get it. I get it.
I mean,
good player there.
At the end of the day, Omarion Hampton is in our big board probably higher than you'll see on most at 11.
And he's moving up. I've just put that out there.
I mean, he's moving up. You could go. I've seen some Tyler Warren, but you just signed Cole Kmet last year. Man, I think I'm gonna ride with Omarion Hampton.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things that quietly Chicago doesn't have a ton of pressing needs, and just based on Ben Johnson and his rapport, immediately once he got to Detroit, they traded DeAndre Swift. So that's not the type of running back that he's looking for. They haven't signed anybody else. It's just him and Roshan, and they re-signed Travis Homer, who's a very good special teams guy.
Right.
So they need somebody dynamic to help out Caleb, kind of similar to what I said about the Raiders. Chicago's got a really, really tough schedule this year. And there's a way to, kind of combat that and grind out some games the way Ben Johnson likes to do. And Omarion Hampton, to me, is the guy that is capable of doing that. If G&T were here, you wouldn't have even had to say my name because the car would have already been in.
Right.
But Omarion Hampton kind of makes you think a little twice because it's like really two running backs in the top 10. But I'm telling you, like, I don't fault you going any other which way. Like, they improved the roster. But I think that's probably the most glaring or biggest difference maker from this guy to that guy at this point in the draft.
No, I actually agree with all the logic that you came up with. I think that is a great pick. One guy that I want to shout out or shout down, I don't know. So I know that we all watched the Washington game between the Bears and Washington, where the final Hail Mary happened, and you saw the guy that was, talking to the crowd. Well, that guy is Tyreek Stevenson. And last year, I actually kind of put out there that we might, take Quinyon Mitchell at 9 instead of going with Rome or whoever was at that point. Just because I don't know that I believe in Tyreek Stevenson. And then, of course, he had the year and did all the things. I was going to just put out there that cornerback was an option. He was 83rd out of 116 cornerbacks. If Will Johnson was on the board, and I know you were going to get there, but if Will Johnson was on the board, I think that would have been a very interesting spot to go with there.
For sure, yeah. And that was a spot that I kind of thought about. I didn't think he would get there because with New Orleans, even though it is uncomfortable because there are so many pressing needs, it's a tough situation. cornerback is just kind of naturally feels
And talent. It's talent.
the nice way to put things.
Yeah.
Will Johnson could very well be on the board at 10 in this draft. But at the end of the day, Jahdae Barron, who is another corner that's highly regarded, a lot of people projecting him a nickel or, a safety kind of in the box guy. Kyler Gordon is their nickel, and they just extended him. So I just don't think schematically it makes the most sense with him specifically. Right. So, yeah, it was just kind of process of elimination and just who's left. And it's like, I already extended the tight end, still have the tackles on rookie contracts. We just signed defensive linemen. And then it's like, oh, you're really reaching on the next edge when you already have pretty solid front seven. Or you can just, hey, Omarion Hampton's way better than DeAndre Swift, and he'll just completely change the dynamic of this offense.
No,
Instead of having,
I completely agree.
A month worth of relevance, you got a whole season inbound if this were to be the pick to me.
Well, don't forget, Ben Johnson was also part of the coaching staff that got rid of DeAndre Swift, gave the ball to Jamal Williams on the goal line every time, did not give the ball to DeAndre Swift. So I'm 100% with it.
Back-to-back years with 30-plus touchdowns separated between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So if Omarion Hampton hypothetically would have gone to, or Ginty for that matter, go to Chicago, they will be on so many of my teams.
Oh, yeah. Best ball and fantasy and everything. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I wanted to pull this up real quick, guys. Yeah. Ginty is amazing, and, of course, he had the most yards after contact. But we did tweet today, or yesterday, whenever it was, that Omarion Hampton had the second most yards after contact at 1,222. And his team was 6-6. He had some amazing games through 2 years, not just 1 year. And he's a guy that you just want on your team because he does everything. He blocks really well. He runs hard. He fits every type of offense, in my personal opinion. And he will be the workhorse in this offense.
A lot of people loved him as a running back, too, until we started seeing mocks put him in the top 15. And now people are like, well, he's not that close to Ginty.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Well, yes. Like, we've already said that.
Hold on. Yeah, no, I know.
Because it's just a natural, pushback of oh, well, I'd rather just have X guy 30 picks later. And sure, yeah, that could work out for you. But I'm just in love with Omarion Hampton, and just wherever he ends up, I think he's going to have an incredible career.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. All right, let's draft him.
All right, so yeah, we'll do a quick recap of the top 10. So we start off Abdul Carter off the board, first overall to Tennessee. Cam Ward going to try to save what is left of Cleveland in their new facility. Emory goes with Travis Hunter with the third pick. Will Campbell fourth to New England. Mason Graham, Ashton Ginty to the Raiders. You got Mimbu solving the right tackle issue with the Jets. Mike Green as edge 2 for us, going off the board to Carolina. Then you got Will Johnson and Omarion Hampton to round up the top 10. And now, once again, like I said, we are snaking it. So now I am on the clock for the 49ers. And, man, they didn't do anything to help their secondary this year. They lost multiple starters. Haven't really brought in anybody to combat that. You got Diomandre Lenore, pretty solid, but then it's just guys I haven't heard of at corner 2 through 6. So Jahdae Barron this is where he goes.
Well, yeah.
At the end of the day, I know Lenore is also one of their best corners, and he's a nickel as well. But this is just such a pressing need for San Francisco. They're going to have a whole lot of issues if they don't come out of this class with some startable corners. And, I think it's a pick that makes sense based on what's left.
Well, I was going to say, and I did look this up the other day. I was going to say snaps by position in 2024 because nickel, you were talking about him being a nickel. He played wide corner at 187 snaps. This is Lenore. Sorry, for Lenore. He played 187 snaps at wide corner, and then slot corner he played 565. So like you said, he's mostly a nickel. I don't know that it'll be a clash of styles. I think getting good players on teams is the trick of the draft, right? And Jahdae makes a lot of sense for that reason. I do think it's a little bit of a reach based on our board, but at the same time, you can't be, at this point, they have to do something at corner. It could have been moving back. Honestly, you might have asked for a trade or something, but this is definitely an option. I think you could have gone edge, maybe.
Yeah,
that would have been one of my other ones.
Lost about 6 starters.
Yeah, it's hard.
Defensively, They lost linebacker. They lost edge too. They lost
Safety.
defensive line. They lost 3 secondary members.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they've got pressing needs everywhere defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I just basically was kind of coming down to Jade or safety 1, and I just kind of viewed Jade a tad bit higher. I know on our board they're basically kind of clumped together. Malachi is just above him, but it was just kind of a preference thing for me.
And also, if you watch our video on all-floor team, Jade is on the all-floor team because of his versatility, mostly because of his versatility, because he could play safety for you. He can do a lot of things. I think Mustafa is actually a good player, so next to him will be good. And Renardo Green is going to be their outside corner, and I think he's actually, he came out of Florida State. He was 37th out of 116 corners in his rookie year. Like, he's good too, so adding depth at these positions is very important. Getting cheaper at these positions is also important. So, I think that it makes a lot of sense. Offensive line is probably something that most people are going to try to say. Adding to their offensive line, adding to their interior defensive line. So those are options, but I'm not against either of that.
Shouldn't have been with respect to Josh Simmons, because we like him so much. He is our tackle 1. I probably shouldn't have turned in the card so fast and maybe gotten a little bit of a debate and let some people talk me into possibly taking the tackle of the future, and maybe he starts on the right side early and then moves over once Trent Williams.
Yeah.
His situation's just he's no longer a Niner, so could have done that. But again, to me at this very moment, this is a win now roster that is just kind of depleted, and we just need picks and players galore.
No, I agree. I get that completely. All right. Now, now I have to go draft. Oh, there's Jade. All right, that was easy. All right. I get the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, sir.
Dallas Cowboys are on the clock.
Make me happy.
Both running backs are gone. So that's not even an option, which makes my life a little bit easier, I guess, to not have to pick those guys.
It's not going to hurt my feelings if you take a running back on the board over receiver that everybody is projecting. But if they're not there, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's going to be addressed, though.
Yeah, fair. I think for Dallas, no, you're good. I know it's your team. But with Dallas, like, there's some options. I think adding to the offensive line is an option. And then adding to the interior defensive line is good. I know y'all brought Ozigizua back, right? That's how Digizua. That name is just crazy to me. Yeah. But y'all do have the issue with Mozzie Smith in the middle, who is one of the worst interior defensive linemen. Was a bad pick in general. Yeah, I remember we talked about it. You did lose D-Law off the edge, things like that. I do think that the injuries to your outside corners and the price, you could possibly bring down, but Jade's now gone, so you're not going to get that nickel. Jordan Lewis did leave, so that was an option I was looking at. He's gone off the board. And then, like I said, okay, yeah, those are all my things. That's all my positions I could have talked about. That's a lot. Holy hell. So we're here.
The thing is, Dallas, sneakily, there's some teams in the top 10 that it's just like, well, we didn't want to target this position.
Right.
It just kind of fell that way. The board, you're not going to be happy for every team. I think Dallas could be happy with however the board falls, because there's like 4 huge needs that needs to be resolved, and there are quality players at all of those positions available at 12.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So we're gonna pick one. I'm going back and forth. There's 2 guys I really think about here. There's really 3 guys, but I'm not going to go the Josh Simmons route, because I don't think he can play interior, and I don't think y'all are getting rid of Terrence Steele this year. So the other guy would be Kelvin Banks, and I like Kelvin Banks a lot. He has a first round grade for us. The other guy would be Walter Nolan to replace Mozzie Smith. And I think what?
I was about to get a fist pump ready.
Either way?
Yeah.
Either way?
No, I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
What would you do? No. Between those 2, right? It would have been one of those 2?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Well, we're going to go with Walter Nolan.
Okay.
I think that's the rate. No. Oh, it's so close. I know I said that.
Either way, awful run defense.
Yeah.
Losing a Hall of Fame.
Chancey Golston left too.
Yeah. I cannot be upset with any of the guys that you picked.
I know. Okay. We're not going to pick Walter Nolan. We're going to go Kelvin Banks.
Okay.
And the reason we're going to do that is because there's a bunch of things. He can start at right guard right now. He can go to left tackle, and you can remove Tyler Guyton from left tackle and move him to right tackle, make it a competition. I think he offers you a lot more when it comes to just what you need to do on the offensive line. I don't think you're ready right now, but Tyler Smith is really good. Cooper Beebe obviously is good at football, and we knew that last year. He was 15th out of 40 centers. I don't know who you're going to start at right guard, but whoever it is, I think that obviously Kelvin Banks is a big improvement if he is going to be there. And then Tyler Guyton was 73rd out of 81 tackles last year. We did not like the pick because he needed time, and he didn't just need time. He also needed to stay at his position, and he didn't do either of those things. So a 49.4 was not surprising to us. Going to right tackle, if he does, Terrence Steele is one of our most friend group hated players because we have a lot of Cowboys friends. So we could replace him with Tyler Guyton at the right side, Kelvin Banks, 2 bookends for the rest of the future. I love, of course, like I said, possibly going with Josh Simmons and playing him at left tackle and putting Tyler Guyton at right tackle. But at the same time, I love the ability to move Kelvin Banks into the interior if we have to. We have a lot of players like that on this team. So that is why we're going to go with Kelvin Banks over all the other guys.
I mean, I completely am making this pick. You don't have to decide
tough.
because it's totally fine to me.
There's so many options, though.
Yeah. You mentioned Tyler Warren, who
fair.
That would have been possibly my pick because I don't want to move forward with Schoonmaker and Jake Ferguson. And again, Dallas needs weapons. I'd rather have Tyler Warren than reach on one of these receivers here.
Yeah.
And also running back. It's just not the move that I would do, and I wouldn't be happy if Matthew Golden or Tetero's name is called when we get to the draft next Thursday. So,
you were disappointed last year, so we'll see what happens.
Well, it's the thing where every now and again they disappoint you, but for the most part they draft pretty well. I just doubt that they would do that 2 years in a row to me. Who knows though?
Yeah.
But yeah, Kelvin Banks, he's battle tested. The difference with Tyler Guyton, it was everybody's trying to put him at left tackle and say he's going to be a great left tackle, and we had never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very priority position to fill. So doing it with no experience for a raw player just was not what I wanted, not what we thought was ideal, and it showed in the first year very, very early. And with Kelvin Banks, on the other hand, if you are not satisfied with Tyler Guyton's play on the left tackle side, Kelvin Banks, 3-year starter.
Mm-hmm.
Battle tested, All-American, all that stuff, so many starts. But to me, he is capable of being a long-time, decade-plus starter almost anywhere on the offensive line.
Except for center. I think you're completely right.
But at the end of the day, you already picked your center.
Yeah.
You got center, you got left tackle. You're trying to figure out both tackle spots, right guard, and I think he's capable of filling any of those holes. Walter Nolan would help immensely on a very awful run defense that lost multiple starters or key players up front. Josh Simmons, kind of similar thing. If you wanted Josh Simmons,
yeah,
and Tyler Guyton, you wanted to move to the other side or shuffle around a little bit, wouldn't have mind that. Tyler Warren, like I said, would be my preference as a skill player if you're going that route. Any of those guys, like I said, there's gonna be 5 guys here that I would be completely fine with in real time, and you picked one of them and that's right.
The problem, and I pulled Kelvin Banks up here because he had 4 sacks given up in 3 years. One of the best in college football for a long time. Played 900 snaps in 2 of those years. So I think that, I wanted to, of course, bring up and show you guys that he had one of the highest pass block grades at 89.9. I think being able to get good players at every position is hard. Mm-hmm. So get a player that can kind of do a lot of things really, really well. And then if you need him to go play left tackle, he can. He has. And he's got some of those limitations that Will Campbell has and that we've talked about. And some people think he's more of a guard. Well, sure. But I think he can play tackle too, more than like a Tyler Smith who was a tackle and moved into guard.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, let's jump over to Miami.
I want you to do this, but don't give me the pick. I have something that I want to ask you before.
Don't give me the pick.
Don't give me the pick.
So with Miami, funny enough, that was who I was targeting at 13 was Kelvin Banks.
Okay.
I thought it made a lot of sense because they lost 2 starting guards. They did sign James Daniels, Liam Etchenberg. They're kicking inside to try to figure that out, and who knows if that'll work. Patrick Paul's a former second-round pick. They're trying that left tackle because Teron Armstead is gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Jackson, right tackle, okay. But the versatility is just like, hey, they need something. BPA, offensive lineman is what I was kind of thinking. But I'm not going that route this time.
Okay.
I'm going to let you go ahead.
Okay. I do want to offer a trade.
Okay.
If that's
First
an
trade.
okay thing.
All right.
The Seattle Seahawks have the most draft capital left on the board. They are at 18. So if you look at their picks, they have 18, 50, 52, 82, 92. So they have 5 picks in the top 100 for a team that's obviously at 18. That's really solid. If you just talk about the calculator, they have 986 draft value points.
Okay.
So I would like to trade up to 13. The trade, I actually kind of premeditated this one. This was one of my trades that I was like, if this guy gets here, I want to go up to it.
All right.
Miami would give up 13 and 98, and Seattle would give up 18 and 52. Basically, my thoughts on if I was Miami would be, if I move back, I can still get an interior guy. I have a favorite interior guy that I think you know that might be there at that point, and that would kind of help there, and you'd get a much higher pick in the second round. I think this is quantity over quality, of course, in this draft, and 52 is going to be a much better player, even to help possibly O-line again. So that was my thoughts.
Well, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and accept that, 1 for funsies, and 2 for the guy that I was about to move forward with picking. I have a hunch that he might still be on the board at 18. So
Okay.
I will say let's go ahead and we'll swap these 2 teams.
I need to, let's see. Your teams, other teams, what? Oh, there. How about that? I'm going to force the trade through without
Yeah, you don't got to spend all the time.
putting all the other stuff in.
Right.
But yeah, it should work. Let's make sure that's the right teams. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Sweet.
Because Seattle did get the picks from Pittsburgh for DK.
For the DK trade,
and
the Geno
then-
Smith trade
yeah.
to the Raiders. So they have a couple extra, day 3 picks. One of the highest draft capitals now all of a sudden because of that.
If I get the trade to force, maybe. I believe in you. We're going to trade. Why are you not letting me? I want that one. Oh, I have to pick something. Duh, Emery. I have to pick something on this side. That's, yeah.
So yeah, I just select the
18.
13 on this.
And 13. There we go. Okay. We're just going to force it. It would have gone through either way, but all right. Perfect. That means I get to pick.
All right.
You're not picking no more.
No.
It's me. Yeah, this was a pretty... I wanted to jump in front of Indy. That was my thoughts. If I can get in front of Indy, I can go get a guy in Tyler Warren
Okay.
who will improve my team. He is going to... Noah Fant is an unrestricted free agent after 2026. He hasn't necessarily lived up to his draft value that he had gotten originally. He's moved around a couple teams. Obviously, he went from Denver to Seattle. And I'm going to get a guy that makes a lot of sense to me as just a, top 5 player in this draft class that is falling to 13. So, yeah, Tyler Warren, I would run in, beat, obviously, Indy to the pick. So that was a big thing for me, too. Saves money at the position and adds elite talent. And Clint Kubiak loved his tight ends when he was in New Orleans. He ran mostly 11 and 12 personnel the whole game because they had Jawan Johnson, they had Taysom Hill, they had Foster Moreau. So why not get him another guy that can, do it all?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that they do need an upgrade there. It's kind of one of those weird things of like, hey, the tight end room's serviceable, but when you got a player like Tyler Warren that's still on the board, this is just to me purely of, hey, how do they evaluate a Colston Loveland who could very well be there at 18 if hypothetically Indy picked Warren and then 14 through 16 or 14 through 17 don't need tight ends
Right.
after that. Or, hey, no, that's the guy. I'm not sure about this guy. Let's just trade up 5 picks. We're going to swap day 2 picks, and that's all it'll take to get one of the top 5 players in this class. Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
I think true. Like Colson Loveland on our board is about where Seattle is. Like just in general, like their 18th pick, Colson Loveland's in that range. Tyler Warren's 5. Now you're getting that true value for him that I really think is important.
And we have, what was it, 13 total first round grades in this class?
They're 14 or 13 or 14.
So,
yeah.
I know, 19 and 5, only 14 spots. Well, one is like fringe blue chip, and one is, hey,
second round.
one of the best second round players available. Like that is a massive difference in the grand scheme of things.
Right. So Tyler Warren will be the pick.
All right. Well, now you as the Indy GM is now stomping the ground.
Yeah.
Because your guy didn't fall.
He did not. He was so close. Yeah, I get to pick.
Well, the thing is,
I get to piss off my own.
He won't.
No, yeah, exactly.
That's how I cannot put a ink to paper on who is going to take him. I just am very confident and comfortable saying he will not be there at 14. And if Indy trades up for him, fine. But it's not like he's going to organically fall. I don't think he's the guy of these top 12 caliber prospects is going to be the one that falls into Indy's lap.
No, I agree. And Indy kind of painted themselves into like they have every other position kind of has a player at it. They brought in the secondary Charvarius Ward, Cameron Bynum. In their linebacker core has been fine for multiple years. They've got they believe they added Ebukon. No, he was already there. They added some players just kind of all over the place that are going to be positions of, need that, free agency kind of. I kind of like adding those positions in the draft. They added Neville Gallimore. That's what I was thinking. Couldn't think of who it was in the interior. And then on offense, they add Khalil Herbert behind Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones, which both quarterbacks are going to be happy about getting a tight end here. So, or getting a tight end if that were to happen with Tyler Warren. I'm still going to pick tight end here because that is the biggest glaring need of this team. Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, Jelani Woods, Will Mallory, a bunch of guys that just are names that are below average tight ends. I have to go with what I believe is the best position need. Their receiving core is actually pretty solid, and it's underrated, I guess is how I would put it, because they haven't had a quarterback to kind of help them look good in the last couple of seasons. But I don't think they're bad. I think their defense is solid. So the biggest needle mover, in my opinion, is adding a solid tight end. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and get the other tight end in Colson Loveland. I'm kind of sad, of course, that, I got sniped by myself. But at the same time,
happens.
Yeah, right. At the same time, I think Colson Loveland is a better player than – there's a big gap between him and the next guy is my biggest thoughts on it.
Do you view as that gap is more significant than what Tyler Warren to Colson Loveland that we just discussed is?
I think it's about the same, honestly. I think it's pretty close to the same. You're not going to get the same type of talent in the second round by any means.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, Indy, everybody's putting tight end there. And like you said, they have some needs that, again, some of these guys would be upgrades. But, yeah, Indy is just – it's very glaring.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know – in the event that hypothetically happens, you're crossing your fingers hoping that Daniel Jones is the guy that is throwing if you're a fantasy manager of a tight end there, because I just don't view Anthony Richardson as like hey, you're going to pepper a guy with 9 targets just over the middle getting 7 yards at a time.
Right.
That Colson would really thrive in. He's more of a, hey, we're going 10 for 32, but we're going to sling it to Alec Pierce down the field.
Yeah, quarterback is a glaring issue, but you can't fix it right now is the problem.
Yeah.
So
the attempt has already been made, and you're just gonna have to. That's what we're doing in 2025, and we're gonna figure out what we're doing after that.
Right.
All right. So Atlanta now on the board. We're about halfway there. To me, I think another glaring need, similar to what you said about Indy, it's edge. To me, you're kind of debating right now best on the board, at least according to our big board. You got Jalen Walker still there. James Pierce is actually a top 15 player to us, even though he's fallen a little bit. Mikael Williams. Man, do you view yourself as pretend you're scout for about 10 seconds, like the good scout you are. Do you have a preference between those three as a best fit for Atlanta?
If I had to say best fit, it's pretty clear to me that James Pierce is probably the best fit. He can kind of, play in their 4-2-5 or their 4-3. I don't think that I will say Jalen Walker is not the best fit to me,
Right.
for sure. And then with Michael, he's harder to scout because Georgia wanted to put the best 7 players in their front 7, and he probably didn't. He was out of position, so we just haven't seen him play outside linebacker yet. So he could be really good, and a lot of people are projecting him really good, but I haven't seen it. I know that James Pierce is good.
Right.
I know that he's good. He has some issues with what was it? He was in trouble, and he's dropping down boards because of his maturity issues. Yeah, so
no arrest or anything, at least as far as we know. It's just straight up, hey, character concerns, and it's just like, hey, Jalen Carter worked out.
He did
it
great.
Just happens all the time. Draft good players, and
Right.
unless they just completely did something just unforgiven or unforgettable, without remorse or something of that nature, and you just have to have a really, really poor PR team if it's that way in our eyes. So I'll go ahead and ride with James Pierce. That's kind of who I was leaning anyway, but I do appreciate the confirmation. Yeah, it's just one of those things that he's another one of those, hey, don't overthink it players. Tennessee did this weird thing, like you mentioned, that they just kind of continuously rotated guys all year, right?
Yeah, that was terrible.
So it's not like his production increased like a lot of guys having breakout years. Kind of took a little bit of a dip, but I kind of view it similar to Jared Verse the year before, where he was a 2-time preseason top 10 pick and then just got an okay season on a good team and dropped to 19, and then all of a sudden, he's the best defensive player in the NFC Championship on the Rams side of the ball. So James Pierce I kind of view similarly, even if maybe stylistically they might have some differences, but doing that with the tandem of Leonard Floyd, who they just got in, that'll be a huge way to improve the pass rush for Atlanta.
Yeah, he played half the pass rush snaps that Donovan Ezeraku played. So it was just like a big situation where they just did not put him or Omar Norman-Lott on the field. And we won't talk about him today probably, but we've talked about him in the past. Both of those guys should have been on the field a lot more than they were. James Pierce, bang. That's a good one. All right, my turn. And Arizona was actually one of the hardest teams for me by far because they don't necessarily have a ton of needs. Oh, well, they have a lot of needs, but they have players at every position that are signed through 2027, and they have players at every position that are okay or young, and it's like, okay, where do I want to go with this team? Should I go corner, which is something I looked at? Should I go interior defensive line? Should I go edge? So this team is basically on a best player available for me. I didn't expect the guy that I'm probably going to pick to be here. One of the guys that I was thinking about was Mike Green. We had Kenneth Grant, James Pierce, Michael Williams. But let's be honest. This team is painted into a corner. Their front 7 is not very good. They did add Josh Sweat. They added Calais Campbell, who's almost 40, I feel like. Been in the league forever. And Dalvin Tomlinson. But edge is really, and they don't have a number 1 edge. So I thought Green or Pierce were going to be my guy here. They're not on the board. I thought at wide receiver is an option. I'm not going to wide receiver because I think, the only way to go wide receiver here, Tedero is still on the board, so maybe, whatever. I'm going to go interior defensive line and get Walter Nolan. Yeah.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I am. And he can play any spot on the interior defensive line. They run a 3-4. He can play that 4-eye. He can play that 3 technique. He can even play nose. He's so explosive. He's one of our favorite players. And it's a huge value on our board. He's 7th on our board. This is a big, big value for us. He's almost, fringe blue chip, like we talked about Tyler Warren earlier, and he's going in the range of the second rounders, the second round grades. So Walter Nolan will be the guy.
Yeah, that definitely makes you cringe when you're targeting a guy. Obviously, I think even though Arizona does have needs on the front 7, I think Cincinnati has such a pressing need
on the next,
And so that's what I was just like, hey, one of those guys, like, you're hoping that you fall, but you can't really afford to trade up.
Yeah.
But yeah, disappointing. But there's no reason he should be on the board this late, based on how we view him as the 7th best player. Even though others are viewing him differently, he's one of our big stands currently.
Yep. So Walter Nolan, and now you have to figure out what you get to do.
But honestly, there's some still good picks on the board. I think in really Cincinnati just needs defense.
Yeah.
Whatever you may think that is, it's a second edge. Sam Hubbard is no longer there. Just tone setters. Their defense was just awful everywhere last year. Corner, I don't really think that, at least at this point, corner is probably the biggest reach of any defensive position.
Absolutely agree.
Jahad Campbell would be fun. I actually like Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, so I don't think that that's as much of a desire. I could go safety, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and ride with edge and go with Mikael Williams.
Okay,
here.
I like that. I think there were a few options that I was thinking was obviously Malachi Starks if you wanted to help up in nickel and all the things that he can do because he's such a versatile type of player. I also thought Kenneth Grant would be an option because of his just run stopping ability, his size, replacing a guy like Slayton in the middle. But they did, of course, sign Sheldon Rankins.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Sheldon Rankins. So last year and paid him. So is he still there? I'm just. What am I saying?
So what happened was that they Sheldon Rankins they signed instead of retaining DJ Reader.
Right.
They cut him after a year, and this year we thought they were also going to lose BJ Hill. Ended up bringing him in.
That's who it was.
So
Chris Jenkins is there.
Yeah.
So that
Chris
was
Jenkins
it would have been fun to see Chris Jenkins next to his old teammate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Going edge here, replacing or adding an edge on the opposite side of Trey Hendrickson. I think that this is a perfect spot for Mikel. I don't know that he'll be on the board in a real draft at this point. So
this
makes a lot of sense.
This is the big range of just, and we've said this time and time again. Edge is probably one of the most jumbled big boards that going from one evaluator to another. Everybody has 2 through 10, just completely in a different order.
Yeah.
You could shuffle cards and have a more predictive way of thinking about it. So, like I said, Cincinnati needs to go just defense this entire. You can't just average 30 a game and miss the playoffs. That's kind of. They have to find ways to not have to score 35 to maybe have a chance to win against these elite teams. So that's just kind of why I went that route. And now Miami is on the board after trading back. My plan fell into place. How the guy I was targeting ended up staying on the board. And I'm going to go ahead and let Malachi Starks fall into my hands at 18. Miami lost both of their safeties this year and replaced them with depth pieces that have not panned out. Ashton Davis from the Jets, and then Ifeatu Melinuwafu, a depth piece from Detroit, and Detroit's notoriously had bad secondaries for the last few years, and he's been slightly a reason because of that. So they need to find ways to get better back there. They really have nothing other than Jalen Ramsey because they also lost Kendall Fuller this year. So again, a corner is a target later on. That's just one of the positions that just organically made the most sense to me for this team.
Well, I also think you could move Kader Coho back outside and play him at outside corner and put Malachi Starks at the nickel spot. So I think this is a really good move just to give you as much. You optimize his ability so much by putting him on a team where he can play so many different places, and then also just getting him in the positions that he's just such a good football player. Right. And getting him on the field is the trick, of course, but this is a team that needs him now, today, yesterday. So I completely agree with that. That's a great pick.
Awesome. Yeah, and so
you have another pick, don't you?
3 straight. Yeah, you went 3 straight. Now it's my turn after the trades we went through. Tampa Bay, kind of another similar one that just has a couple needs that are organically, like there's all pretty solid values here. I think a good idea to me for Tampa Bay here is to get Levante David's successor and go with Jahad Campbell here.
Yeah, it's perfect.
He's the best defensive player we have available. And again, they tried to do this with Devin White. It did not work out. Levante, fortunately for them, has still just been a monster. But he's going on year-to-year deals. He re-signed for a year this year, and that's basically all they have at linebacker. You got Yaya Diaby, Serve Valkia Dennis, Anthony Walker, Deion Jones. I mean, just a lot of names that just would not be on most rosters. So you did bring in Hassan Reddick to play edge, but that's just kind of not what they typically like to do, or not. that's not typically the role that he would be playing, that Jihad would. And Jihad, I just think, would be a massive difference maker. They really kind of fell off with some injuries this past year when Antoine went down, and I know Levante still made plays, but Vita Vea was banged up a little bit as well. So they need to get back to their roots and how they got to their Super Bowl winning ways with Tom Brady. The defense was the reason that they were winning that Super Bowl and pressuring Patrick Mahomes the way they did. And obviously the majority of that core is gone defensively. Yeah. So that to me he's the locker room guy that you need going forward for this team, and that's why I like this pick.
I wonder if in the comments we're gonna get the hell of how, of course, Jihad Campbell goes to the Buccaneers again in every mock draft ever made, because he feels like the perfect fit. I mean, he really is. Like, he can go in there, play now, help on the edge, possibly pass rush that he brings. He's basically, and I remember Devin White doing those things in the Super Bowl that, really helped that team to, get after Tom Brady that you were talking about. So, look, it's a perfect pick. He might be, I think he'll be here. And the problem is he's going to be higher on everybody's board, most likely, but linebacker's not a need for, it's not a high-level need on most teams. So he gets to fall to the perfect team for him and right off into the sunset, I guess. I'm going to let it go, though.
All right.
All right.
Now the last pick of the top 20 goes to the Denver Broncos. A lot of people are putting running back here. It's ones that we don't think will be even available at that point. It's not to say that they don't need running back, but again, like I said previously, sneakily top 5 roster in football because they just have not a ton of needs anymore. One of the best defenses in football. Offensive line, second best last year per PFF.
Yeah.
Skill players, I mean, yeah, you'd like some guys to step up in the year 2s and 3s. It's a lot of young guys that they basically just went wide receiver by committee next to Cortland Sutton. So, yeah, you can throw another one of those guys and hope that they elevate instead of a Marvin Mims, who's a former second-rounder, and you got Troy Franklin as a former teammate of Bo Nix. I'm going to let you take the wheel. Where are you going with this pick?
Like you said, this is one of the hardest picks on the board. Going through like all the positions, it makes it even harder because there's just not like a thing that I'm like, yeah, that's what I need. Some of the players that I was thinking about, it's obviously a BPA spot. I think Malachi Starks, if he would have gotten here, would have been a guy that I was like, really on. Mykel Williams was a guy I was really thinking about. Okay, so in 2026, defensive line free agents. You have Malcolm Roach, Zach Allen, and John Franklin Myers. That's basically all their guys that they're starting in the up front. Of course, they're going to bring some of them back. You could add pass rush. The young tandem of Benito, Jonathan Cooper, and Jonah Ellis. You could add some guys to that group. That was what I was thinking with Mykel. I'm going to do something that I don't think most people have seen, and I'm going to go Kenneth Grant. Depth and ability to stop the run is absolutely going to be important on this team. They don't have a ton of like hand in the dirt defensive linemen, and I think that obviously he can play both three technique and nose if he has to. I will bring up his snaps because it's good to see that he was in the B gap for most of his career, so he can obviously move out. He can also play it nose if he has to. And this also is one of those picks where I'm like, hey, I don't want necessarily for him to fall to, your ex-Michigan coach at the Chargers. I think that, taking him, it feels pretty good. I like him a lot. He's in on our rankings. I mean, he's about right here. So I think he fits that whole thing. And I can't believe I'm looking at my rankings and there's a guy that we haven't even touched yet that's falling. But yeah, no, Kenneth Grant.
I almost swooped in on a trade request, but I thought it was maybe I could wait a pick or two to
try it.
That,
so. Okay.
But yeah, I think that Kenneth Grant is probably one of the most unsexy picks in this range. That a lot of people are thinking receivers or edges or trying to throw every which corner out there, or the second quarterback that's still on the board around this frame, but just Kenneth Grant, I think wherever he goes, I think he's going to be very steady, very safe. So yeah, I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of projecting for the future a little bit on this team. I think that you have young corners. You just paid Pat Surtain. You have young edges.
Which is a bargain now because you saw all the extensions. And
Yeah.
You had the Depoy guy have it after the signing.
Right,
not
right.
before.
Exactly.
So that was they saved millions of dollars extending him early.
Yep. So that's kind of my thought. Riley Moss has been fine. I don't think we need to replace Riley Moss. Nickel is my biggest thought, but there's no nickel here. It was Malachi Starks. So Kenneth Grant was my answer.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's run it back a little bit. Recap the top 11 through 20 on the board. So Jahdae Barron goes to San Francisco. We're going to be cherry picking the best corner available there for probably the rest of the way, but we'll just kind of see how our final mock turns out next week. Kelvin Banks going to Dallas, solving a need on the offensive line. Tyler Warren gets traded up from Seattle in our first and only trade thus far. Colston Loveland, Indy takes a tight end anyway at 14. And then Atlanta takes the edge. James Pierce is the guy we went with. Arizona fixes the defensive interior with Walter Nolan, one of our top 10 players. Mikael Williams to Cincinnati as their edge 2. Malachi Starks falls into Miami's lap at 18. Jahad Campbell becomes the successor to Levante David at 19. And then Kenneth Grant rounds out the top 20 as another quality defensive line piece for the Denver Broncos.
Perfect.
Awesome. So now 21, we are once again snaking it and flipping it. So now you are Pittsburgh. And this is a very polarizing discussion because there's a certain guy still on the board.
Yeah, there is. I don't know. Okay, so this is actually a spot that I was willing to, talk about trading back.
Okay.
For myself or for you, just depending on who wants to trade more, basically. Because I do have a team that I think could really use the likes of a guy like Josh Simmons, and I think you're on the same page that is a guy you would want to trade up for.
You're probably the team that is probably more desperate. If you're talking about Houston,
I am. Yeah.
So they're the more desperate team to move up for him.
Right.
Kansas City, to me, it's a luxury because they did sign Jalen Moore at left tackle. So at the end of the day, if that's what they go with, that's what they go with.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you said initially, Josh Simmons is a guy to stay on the outside. He's not as position versatile as a couple of these tackles in this class. So Kansas City would be fun to do, but I don't know if it's necessarily a need to go all the way up to 21 or 20, which is what I thought about as well. But Houston, like I said, they traded away Laremy Tunsil, and it looks bad, and I think it's very, very pressing. But you have control of both of those franchises. Right?
And I also want to put out that Pittsburgh does not have a second-round pick.
Yeah.
And that's a big
DK trade.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. Moving up to Pittsburgh at 21, they then would get some sort of compensation in the middle rounds because Houston does have
2 third rounds.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So that's probably what I'm going to try to do here. I don't have the calculator in front of me.
Like I said, we don't have to do a ton of details. Just we're forcing trades and just know it's going to be a day 2 pick and maybe a little bit of more change to move up 4 spots. Not a terrible price to pay, but Josh Simmons should not be here. He probably will be, but Houston probably needs to nap him up before somebody else does.
Yeah, and I was going to say, with the movement, you can go with the 79th pick and the 25th pick, and it should be plenty of compensation.
That should be very, very in the ballpark of what the realistic trade would be in this hypothetical scenario.
Yeah. Let me put it in. 25. We'll just put that in there. But let's see. Not interesting. Okay, whatever. Let's add. Because we'd give more. Maybe a third rounder next year or something. Mm-hmm. We're going to force the trade. Now, I'm still on the clock. The biggest position, obviously, for Houston is their offensive line. Their offensive line has been atrocious, and they got rid of their best player on the offensive line because of issues of just doesn't have the mindset that they want. If you just
Green, first round pick that they've traded away didn't pan out.
Shaq Mason, yeah, another one. They did add a ton of players: Trent Brown, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Calvin Jerome, and Ed Ingram. All of those guys through their O-line. But I don't think that any of those guys are long-term options. Blake Fisher had a 44.7 grade this last year, which I'm gonna check to see if that was the worst because that
I think it was
sounds pretty
second to
bad.
worst. I think we brought that up in a previous episode.
Yeah, 79th out of 81, so third to the worst. Cam Robinson was 53rd out of 81, so not great either. I think just adding talent like a guy like that we have in our top 10 should not be here, in our opinion, is the way to go. And he can play right tackle. He played right tackle before he went to Ohio State from San Diego State. He's, just going to give you a lot. And I think that they've done a really bad job of drafting offensive line. I love this guy. And that's going to hope. And, I've done okay at tackle. That's been one of my better positions when I've scouted. I think he's going to be great. Adding him to this offensive line helps them a lot because now they can leave Titus Howard at guard. A lot of things, just kind of fall into place when you can get a tackle of his caliber, in my personal opinion. And so, yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. To me, I think Houston's crossing their fingers, but I don't know if, a Pittsburgh or a Green Bay would take
they
him,
could.
Or even Minnesota if they did stay there. But you're not shocked if they do.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. And so trading up a couple picks to get a guy that shouldn't be there, who is clearly the best available option, and it's a huge drop-off after that, you had to do it.
Especially true tackle. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, true tackle, Josh Simmons is far and above, Josh Connerly, any of the other guys right there. So that's why. So we'll take him.
No, love that. I would have done the same offer had I had control of Houston. So, yeah, don't mind that at all. Now, Pittsburgh moves back to 25, and so we'll discuss them pretty shortly. Next up, I am available with the Chargers at 22, and there's no Michigan players. Kenneth Grant is gone. Colson Loveland's gone. Everybody wants to mock a Michigan player around here. I don't really know what specifically they need, but I know that their defense got torn up and apart to end the year. You got defensive line needs, you got kind of linebacker needs, you got secondary needs as well. Offensive line, I think, is pretty fine based on what's available right here. Everybody also wants to possibly put a receiver here, and I'm just like, this is not what Jim Harbaugh wants to do, is have 4 different receivers and play Madden.
Right.
And I mean, they signed Mike Williams, and they got Quinn Johnson, who, he's polarizing, but he had a pretty solid rebound season in year 2. And then Ladd McConkey, obviously, breakout stud that they drafted in the second round last year. So they're not going receiver in round 1. I'm pretty comfortable saying that. So with that said, I'm going to be flirting with the best available defensive player.
Okay.
And I don't know fit-wise if it makes a lot of sense, but Jalen Walker is still there. And I'm kind of leaning that way. What are your thoughts if I'm slogging that in?
Let me look at the other players, because what do they run? I can't remember off the top of my head.
They run 3-4.
Okay. So he could play a little bit of both.
It's kind of a weird thing where they're, a nose tackle and a defensive tackle, but I mean, that's just kind of how they like to play big up front.
Yeah.
And then have very, very athletic guys in the linebacker core.
I think Jalen Walker makes a ton of sense here.
Okay.
But at the same time, being lower on him, I don't expect him to be here in a real draft. The next guy that we kind of talk about for edge is Nick Scorton. I think he could be fine as long as he loses weight, because playing at 280, he looked awful. He needs to go back to his 250 days. But yeah, Jalen Walker's perfectly fine. You get the explosiveness. You get his locker room presence, which is something that I hear a lot about. Maybe I don't like him as a on-field player. He has a lot to go up from, but right now his locker room presence is something I think Harbaugh is going to love, and that's important. That's right. Super important.
I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, Jalen Walker, and again, you don't know if it's a great fit, but the thing is, I don't know if anybody knows whatever is a great fit with Jalen Walker, because we think he's kind of a positionless player, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you kind of got to be great at something, and you can't be a 6'1" edge. That's your only position that you can play. But also linebacker, there's some things to work on if he's just purely going to be that, or if I just don't know. So Jalen Walker, he will not be here in the real draft, but right now it's basically kind of where we have him ranked on our big board. I like the fit.
Perfect. I guess that's me, right?
Yeah, Green Bay Packers.
Tough
on the
team.
clock.
Tough team. They don't like doing anything normal in the draft. It's ridiculous. So I'm not going to be giving them a wide receiver 2, because that is something that everybody talks about. They have a ton of wide receiver 2s and 3s. They don't have any wide receiver 1s. I thought about going edge, because edge deep in that rotation, they did go Lucas Van Ness last year. And so you could go with a Nick Scorton here. Cornerback is a absolute reach. So I don't want to go that way, but that is one of their biggest things. Jair has been in trade talks. Kayshawn Nixon isn't a favorable starter in my opinion. They did have to get rid of, or they got rid of Eric Stokes. So that is a position that I think they have to address in this draft, possibly multiple times. The guy I'm going to give them is Tedoroa McMillan. And the reason that I was saying, oh, yeah, I'm not giving him number 2, because this is a number 1. This is a number 1. He is a value pick at this point. He should not be here. So he's a number 1 style receiver, and if he works out, he will be a number 1 player for them. Not a number 2. Emeka Ibuka's on the board. Luther Burden. You could say that Luther Burden could turn into a number 1, but we know Tedoroa is the style of player that gives them a number 1 body type.
I'm completely on board with Tedoroa because, like you said, he has the build, the capability of being a wide receiver 1 for a team, and I just feel like if you invest in that position, but another guy, that's just adding to the situation that you already have, which is a bunch of wide receiver 2s that kind of end up just being guys at the end that you just don't know who to trust down the stretch, because you got Jaden Reed with stretches, you got Christian Watson with stretches, which again he'll miss a lot of the year, if not all of it, with the ACL injury. Romeo Dobbs same way, kind of disappears but then kind of steps up. Dontavian Wicks, he's the best receiver ever until he has to catch it.
Yeah,
like it's one of those things. And so I think Tedoroa, Jordan Love had a little bit of a down year, and you need to kind of, again, he's your guy, you invested in him. You got to make sure that he's set up for success. And so getting somebody that can be a go-to guy, a jump ball guy, I think is something that would improve this offense.
Fair. And at this point, I think he's the highest value player we have on our board. Yeah. So he was a great value for this pick overall.
Absolutely. Next up,
we know
is a very interesting talking point.
Yes. I have an idea.
I have an idea to propose to you, but I want to hear it first since you are, possibly swaying me.
Well, I want to know what team you're thinking.
Tennessee.
Okay. To quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me.
Because at the end of the day, Pittsburgh, I think it's a target spot. We know Minnesota wants to trade down because they have the worst
draft capital. Yeah, it's terrible.
Capital of any team. It's to get over a Los Angeles Rams and Pittsburgh now, who could very well take a guy in either of these two spots. I think Tennessee, because they went Abdul Carter, they don't have a third round pick, but they have all the future firsts. It won't take a second first to get this far because they do have the second pick of the first round. That was a team that I was going to throw out there, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts first.
Well, I was going to say that Pittsburgh was going to try to move up one spot.
Okay.
Also,
to secure it.
To secure it. I think that other teams that are options, you did take Cleveland. No.
Well, Cleveland.
I guess that's it.
Cleveland
Yeah, just
now
Tennessee.
has Cam Ward in this scenario.
Yeah.
So it's really like, to me, the big teams that could possibly do this that we don't already have quarterbacks to is the Giants and the Tennessee.
Right. Agreed.
And so you have control of both.
Mm-hmm.
So which one do you think makes more sense?
Well, the Giants have their third rounder. They might have the ability to make a more reasonable trade.
But I don't think also, even if Tennessee isn't able to have a day 2 pick, I don't think they're going to bat an eye if they got the quarterback of the future plus the best player in the draft.
No, I completely agree with that. I think it's definitely Tennessee that we're going to try.
Okay.
Because I think New York is okay with riding with Russ and just getting those mid-rounders. I think that Tennessee actually can offer a lot more than even Pittsburgh for one spot. I think Pittsburgh would be really pushing it based on moving back, getting that third rounder. They'd have to give up a third rounder and that pick, so it wouldn't be worth it to me.
And also, it is worth noting, and I know that Tennessee, first the first pick has a lot of weight, but their draft value is more than double
Mhm.
what Pittsburgh's is.
Yeah.
So even if you take away the first and the what they would have the 21st pick initially, that's still going to be a sizable gap between draft capital between the two. So I think Tennessee makes a little bit more sense.
Let's see.
Plus, again, if it's a bidding war, I think they offer a little bit more, like you said.
Yeah, and they have 2 4th-rounders, 2 5th-rounders, 2 6th-rounders in this draft itself. We're gonna say it's Tennessee. I'd expect it to be something like 740. So 550 to 740. They probably have to give up like
I think that
next year third too, probably, and stuff like that.
Like this year's day 2, a day 2 next year, and maybe another day 3 pick.
But I think that's okay.
But to do that, to get above the Rams and the Steelers, I think it's worth it for Tennessee, who we recently had with Abdul Carter. A lot of people have Cam Ward going there anyway. That's probably what's going to happen. But they go a different route, and again, they're able to get a quarterback of the future and the best player in this class with this move.
Yep, I agree. Let's say like that and that, whatever.
And like we said, Minnesota has no picks. They have the 24th pick and then a 97th pick.
Yeah,
they have 4 picks total in this draft. Like, they are going to trade down at some point if it's not at 24. They need picks out the wazoo. So, yeah.
Sorry, Minnesota fans, for not picking for your team.
Is what it is. Like,
yeah.
You're going to feel better about it because of the fact that a lot of what you need is, cornerback, safety, which Nick Amenawari, that would be a fun pick here too.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the guys that are on the board that are best available, it's probably not what you need. You don't need, tackle that
right.
We don't know if they'll play tackle. You just re-signed Aaron Jones and invested in Jordan Mason in the trade, so you're not going to be a hypothetical third running or the RB3 team if they do go in the late first or early second. So, yeah, I think you have pressing needs later, and you just need more picks to do it. So it just makes all the sense in the world.
Yep. All right, we're gonna do it. Shadur it is, and then Pittsburgh's on the clock. That's also me.
Yep. Screwed yourself again.
Shit. Let's see. Well,
let me ask you this as a GM real quick, because obviously Shadur is a heavy talking point to Pittsburgh. There is also a lot of Aaron Rodgers link and wait and see. In this scenario, as a GM, are you really crossing your fingers hoping Aaron Rodgers is your guy this year? Or are you really wanting to go another route?
I know what you're going to ask. I do like Jackson Dart. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's ready to play day one. That's the biggest problem. And it would not be – but he does have the receiving core if he does go there. So it does help that way. You get – 2 really solid receivers in Metcalf and Pickens, and then you also get a tight end in Pat, who we like a lot. Yeah, I'd expect them to sign Aaron Rodgers, but he is obviously holding out for everything he can, and it's not a situation I want to be a part of, maybe.
I think my opinion is his gut feeling is that it's not the best situation for him, and he's holding out hope that a Minnesota or a San Francisco changes their mind in the spring or late spring at some point.
No, I get it.
But the safe spot is to go to Pittsburgh, because that is the obvious, like, you're a starter. And the other ones, if nothing ends up working out, and hey, JJ McCarthy is actually really good and we're going to give him the spot. And then the other I've heard is San Francisco being hey, no, Brock Purdy getting extended or whatever you want to say, that they're just going to ride with him at least for one more season, and you just don't have a job at that point.
Right, for sure.
Then you're going to have to wait until training camp for an injury or something to open up any kind of possibility.
So currently on our big board, just like so we can have an idea of where these guys are going, because I know that, big boards are all different across the league. Shadur Sanders is 52, Jackson Dart is 54. So I don't think it's a reach, obviously, when you're talking about the most important position in football, to go get a quarterback that we like. Obviously, we would want him to sit for a year, but, maybe he just gets to battle off with Mason Rudolph and he takes the job, 4 games in, because they're 1-3. I don't know who they're playing, but you know what I mean. So the other options I had was defensive line. Kenneth Grant was the guy that I was hoping would fall here at 21. He didn't. Amari Hampton, if we were going to go that route, I thought that was interesting. I don't think Trayvon's the answer here if we're going to talk about it because he's very similar to the backs they have. Yep, we're going to do it. We're going to go with Jackson. And I think that it's a reasonable pick. Like, he's going in the first round. I like him a lot. I love his upside. Dustin obviously thinks he should be the number 1 overall player, which is obviously not where we're at. But I think he's a great football player, and I love his upside. He's on the all-ceiling team for a reason if you haven't watched it. So, yeah, we're going to go Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh. He kind of feels like a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, I agree as well. And if it plays out in the draft where Shedeur is already off the board by the time 21 happens, I mean, Jackson Dart's like at this point minus 300 to go in the first round.
He's going in the first
he's
round.
Going in the
yeah,
first
he's going in
round
the first round.
And it just naturally feels like a Pittsburgh thing. And like you said, ideally you wouldn't have to start him early, but at the end of the day, it's not gonna hurt my feelings going this route.
Sure.
It's actually a guy I was heavily considering to the Rams, which again, another spot that I would love, but it's not like they're doing like a damn.
Yeah, they have options.
Happens, they can move on because we know that if Dart went there, he wouldn't play at all unless there was an injury. Whereas with Pittsburgh, if Aaron Rodgers goes there, maybe he ends up replacing him if it's a very, very terrible start, or maybe they start who's
Mason Rudolph.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Mason Rudolph. Yeah,
They brought him back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's your best option right now.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. No, that's not an option. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, we
but yeah,
definitely have seen what that has looked like.
Miami was awful. So yeah, but the Rams, they are great at drafting. So you have the fun pick for the young Rams team.
It's almost kind of a luxury pick because
it
of
is.
the fact that what they truly need is like linebacker, and
neither of them are there.
Yeah, neither are there.
Neither of them fell.
Essentially, neither fell. We brought it before in other mocks of like, hey, if Jahad Campbell fell to that, that'd be
pick.
one of our favorite, biggest winners when it comes out. Line is pretty much solved, other than the interior can be upgraded. And I'm thinking of the best available player that we have on our big board.
Wow.
Gray Zabel.
Fun pick.
He's one of our favorite players in the entire class, and he's really been juiced up as a first round pick. He kind of falls to the Rams, and they did lose Jonah Jackson to or traded him away to Chicago. So now they are stuck with Bo Limmer at center, who they drafted last year, but he did struggle in his playing time. And then Steve Avila, who's another young guy that he did much better. But Gray Zabel has the positional flexibility to play, either position, whether it's guard or center. And so I think it's a position of just like, hey, best available player, and Gray's there, and I think it'll help what we are already good at.
Yeah, they did add Shelton from Chicago, so that might be a guy that they want to play at center. But like I said, I mean, you're getting a guy that can help you later on. Even I wish I would have really looked into their contracts, because that would have given me an idea if they would be willing to go, with this, if they had some guys that are going to be 2026 guys coming out for free agency. But I love Gray Zabel, and so I'm 100% on board with him going this early. He might even go earlier. Seattle was an option, of course, and stuff like that, but they moved up.
Right.
So Gray Zabel to the LA Rams.
Awesome. Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. So we got about 6 picks left. Baltimore is now on the clock. I kind of have a vibe of where you're going with this, but I'm going to let you take over and tell me what you think.
Did you think it was offense or defense?
Defense.
Okay, cool. Talking about some of the options, Nick Scorton, Donovan Ezraku. Gray Zabel was the actual pick that I was like, hey, if he gets here, we're running that card. I had some guys that I was like, they probably won't get here, but if they do, like, that's the one. Right. He did not, obviously. Donovan Jackson, though, would be the next guard, interior offensive lineman. He's been put into the first round a couple times. We do like Donovan Jackson. He's right outside the first round at 33 for us. So if you're going to go with that guy, that's an option too. D-line needs rotational pieces, but I don't know that. I think Tyleik Williams really does feel like a Raven, and we're really high on Tyleik Williams. He's a stout run stopper, and so that was one thing. Ravens ranked first against the run. They're another team that picks defense early and just rotates through those guys, so he could be an option. The answer, though, has to be I think it's Nick Scorton. Like,
Okay.
I think it has to be the answer in my personal opinion. But I do love the Tyleek idea.
That's
And
actually what I thought you were gonna
between
go to.
Tyleek,
Yeah,
yeah,
was Tyleek
I
just
think there's a
because.
better team for him, and
Okay.
I'm not drafting them, so you get to figure that out.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I'll see if I can play matchmaker on that one. But yeah, I do like to pick. I also wanted to say another honorable mention is Nick Emmanuel, which I don't know at this point if he will be selected in the first round. We're coming down close to it, but he's a first round capable defensive back that is the best one that we have on our board
mhm.
remaining. And obviously, Kyle Hamilton is amazing at what he does as safety, but after that, it's kind of pretty thin. So did have that, and then also we've seen a couple of interviews of just like Amanda Warrior's infatuation with like, hey, that would be so cool to play with Kyle Hamilton. So kind of
Interesting.
matchmaker, just honorable mention. That wouldn't have been my pick if I had the team, but just want to bring him out because he is still on the board.
Would you have picked Tyleek?
Yes.
Okay, I do love Tyleek, like I said, but I think adding pass rush because Kyle Van Noy is probably going to be gone. I have it up here. Hold on one second.
He's getting up there in age,
He's in.
but,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
um,
Tavius Robinson and Adisa Isaac are the only ones signed through 2026. So
and then Owe,
but
who they gave
2026
him a
on
couple
free
years ago,
agent. Yeah.
he did not pan out.
Ajabo the same way.
Yeah.
They're both free agents after 2026. So adding Scorton, I think, makes more sense just for
fair.
this team. But it's really close. Both of them are right. They're 3 picks, 3 placements different on our big board.
Gotcha. Okay, so now going to Detroit.
Oh,
which,
this is interesting right here.
I mean, Detroit, we've had edge there a couple times.
Mhm.
I just feel like it makes a lot of sense to continue down that route. I'm actually pulling up the depth chart just to confirm before I make my official pick. Once again, last year they did a heavy investment in secondary, both signing Carlton Davis to a year deal and then drafting back-to-back corners to start the draft. But theirs didn't pan out as well. Taron Arnold obviously was infamously stuck holding a ton last year. Ennis Rakestraw, I think he was in and out of the lineup with injury. And Carlton is now gone, but they did
Right.
sign DJ Reed, who's a really solid corner. Amik Robertson is there. Vontae Maddox as the depth piece. So secondary, and then Brian Branch. Love him
Of
at
course.
safety. Kirby Joseph led the league in picks, so
Yeah.
I think they're good at safety. So I think it's basically defensive linemen. Aiden Hutchinson was DPOY worthy before his injury. I expect him to recover and get back to a very strong version of what he was, but it may take some time. And with that said, Marcus Davenport, a former first rounder that just kind of bounced around teams, did re-sign for another year. But I do need a little bit more there. DJ Reader is fine. Ali McNeil did pretty well in spot starts last year. Man.
Which is your favorite guy, though?
Oh. I think I'm going to do what we did in our mock 2.0. And
Okay.
I'm going to go Jack Sawyer.
It feels like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
I completely, I get it.
It's a fit thing. It makes a lot of sense. Another Buckeye. And I know it's a reach based on what people want to perceive, but it's just one of the floor picks that you can't go wrong with.
I don't understand how PFF has him at 92. Like, that's
insane.
Okay. He has the highest floor, one of the highest floors of any of the edge defenders, and we had a short on it, so if you go check out our shorts, you'll see it. It's because of the fact that he is one of the highest, like, high-end edge twos in the class that has already got the run game ability that Detroit loves. And he's a Detroit guy. I think he makes the most sense. He has the upside to be a good pass rusher. Jack Sawyer's an option for sure. That is crazy that he is 92.
And a lot of people, with JT Tuimoloau
Mhm.
as like one of the best, like, hey, secondary edge piece for your team, like that's one of the best things that you can do.
Mhm.
And it's just like, well, Jack is the same way, and we have him much, much higher on our board compared to others. And a lot of people have that same distance, but it's flipped.
Right.
It's just one of the more puzzling things to us.
One thing I would like to say is Washington will probably try to trade back at this point. I don't know who their landing partner would be necessarily.
It's tough because.
But
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I might just pick for him because there doesn't look to be like a guy that you're like moving up for. if that makes sense.
Yeah, it could be a wide receiver preference for an early second round team.
Yeah.
It could be RB3 for Travion.
Mm,
I don't think there's many worthy. Nick Manowari, another guy that if you're gonna stick and pick, does make sense because they do have some safety need.
right.
They also only have 5 picks, so they're a very natural trade down team. They are the second worst trade value of any team in the upcoming draft.
Yeah. I actually, you know what? There is a team. It's mine, so that works. Because it's Jacksonville. Actually, we're gonna move up. Jacksonville Jaguars are gonna move up. Because why not? It's a mock draft. Why not?
Fun.
We get to.
We're having fun.
We're gonna move up and we're gonna take a wide receiver because we're gonna put a wide receiver. Right now, if you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, like they have no wide receivers. They have.
Gabe Davis.
Okay. Gabe Davis was 127th out of 133.
Hey, but he changed his number, so it's a new beginning.
Oh, okay. Jacksonville released Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk.
Yep.
De'Ami Brown was added, but he is a 1-year deal. And the only real player they got is Brian Thomas Jr., who we love. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like there's some really good wide receiver 2s in this class that we are going to move up for. So we're going to do what Washington wants. We're going to get them a new pick and give them some stuff. Let me go ahead and put in Jacksonville from 36. We're going to go up from 36 to 29. We're going to add some things. I don't know what. Minnesota's pick, because we do have some picks from other teams. We'll just put it in there and see. Yeah, that one's fine. Sure. Okay. We're going to force the trade through. We're going to add more than that in a real draft, but whatever. And
I honestly don't even think it would take that much.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's only 7 spots, and it's not like there's a pressing need that there's a bidding war for.
Right.
Because a lot of these guys, especially if you're talking receiver, there's 3 guys that are on the board: Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, and Matthew Golden, who are very, very close together.
Yeah.
And so maybe some people are just like, hey, we'll take whoever falls to us. But any of these guys could be moved up for, and it wouldn't look bad in our eyes at all.
Well, they're going to get the 5th-year option. You talk about last year's class, a ton of movement at the back of the first round for those guys. Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, and
they traded out of the.
Yeah, they traded out.
That was an interesting way of doing it.
And then Xavier Legette made a first round appearance, and Ladd McConkey made a first. I'm going to say that Luther Burden or Emeka Ibuka, whichever one you want to go with, are really high end wide receiver 2s. Luther Burden could turn into a wide receiver 1. I don't think Emeka Ibuka can. Because, and when we say that, it's stylistically, you need a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 to complement each other. I don't think that Emeka Ibuka is a stylistic wide receiver 1 ever in his career. Now, Luther Burden could be. I'm going to go Luther Burden because I have him higher on our board, and I believe in him a little bit more, and I believe in the 2023 tape a little bit more than most people do. Okay. Just like PFF. Lucky us. We'll work together here. And that'll be my pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you're on the clock.
Well, yeah. Just quick reflection. I like the move to get the best available receiver, because there are teams that could really use one
at the beginning of the first, second round.
You got Tennessee's no longer there now, but Tennessee in real life at the very moment could use one. So there's a couple teams that they might need to jump in order to make this a thing. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think I personally, and if you followed us before, I'm the Mecca guy, he's the Luther guy, but it's not like we hate the other.
No,
it's a coin flip between the two, and we just are landing on other sides. So
yeah, currently Emeka Ibuka is 27th on our big board, and Luther Burden's 24. Like it's close. It's right. So close. So
yeah, completely fine with the move. Consent to it. So yeah, now we are to the 30s. The last pick of the 30th. I'd say let's just run through and then we'll go 20 through
20
as a recap.
Yeah.
So Buffalo. Let's see. Depth chart. They're a weird team because they obviously not overachieved, but they outperformed or exceeded our expectations of them last year. We thought that they would be a fringe playoff team, and they just kind of ran away with the division. Yeah. And it was awesome. But then this year, they're just investing their money very strangely. And like Khalil Shakir with $15 million extension, and also giving Josh Palmer $13 million, and you're extending other guys on your team. Joey Bosa is a 1-year deal that they brought in, bringing back DeMar Hamlin, extending guys that were just like, that's a hefty price, but I get it. I guess that's what you want to do. They always pride themselves on being very deep, and they basically go 12 deep on the defensive line. So
Right.
Tyreek right now is our best available player, and it's just like, where is he going to play? Is kind of how I see it. Receiver, they've already invested a ton in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they go there.
No corners. Corner would be a stretch here. That would
Yeah.
be a position I think would be important. Tight end, I don't like.
I think I like their safety. I mean, I don't love DeMar Hamlin, but I mean,
Yeah, I think they would probably replace him if they could. But I don't know that they need to spend this pick on Nick.
yeah.
I think, and this was, I'm going to let you pick, but I completely agree with your analysis on it so far.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with let me see the last deal of this said person real quick.
Okay.
This doesn't give me any contract information. Fun. I'm thinking about Josh Connerly here.
Okay.
I know left tackle is pretty, serviceable, because they do have Deion Dawkins, who's been really strong. I think Josh Connerly could be fine here. But Spencer Brown, I think he's been around for a while and been on their team for a while.
Right.
I just don't know his contract situation. And ourlads.com does not have contract stuff, which is not fun. Yeah, he was a guy that they also extended. So, he's getting 18 per. One less
position that you can pick from there.
Right.
That's tough. They just added Joey Bosa.
You got guards.
Yeah. I'm with you though on one guy you've named so far. So that I'd be really on.
Nick? You talking Nick? No.
Tyreek.
Yeah,
I think he's the perfect fit. Stylistically.
Yeah, he is, but I mean, you got Daquan Jones there, Ed Oliver, Larry Ogunjobi.
Yeah.
And then in terms of defensive ends, like AJ Epinesa is their backup, and
Yeah.
we love him.
I know.
Greg Russo,
It's tough,
Joey
man.
Bosa. Like, I just don't see him playing a ton there.
Yeah.
Even though maybe long term it's fine.
I mean, maybe Nick Amanawari's the best option then, just for like most improvement, moving the needle. Him or my guy. And if you wanted to go with Kevin Winston, I wouldn't be mad at you either. So both of those guys are options. Kevin Winston probably fits better, actually.
Yeah.
And I know that this is the board, but they're one spot apart. Like Nick Amanawari's 35 and Kevin Winston's 36. So
Right.
it's not like we're that far apart.
Yeah. I think this is, if the board hypothetically felt this way for Buffalo, they would be just like, hey, does anybody want to trade up?
Yeah,
Please.
for sure.
I mean, they've been, trading up and trading back the last couple of years. They traded up for Dalton Kincaid. Last year, they traded back twice to get out of the first round and draft Keon Coleman. Basically, all the best players available just aren't there. Running back wise, James Cook had a breakout year, but apparently he wants to get paid an absurd amount of money.
Yeah.
That could force them to be possibly reevaluating if they're going to keep
him.
Maybe he's a sneaky trade candidate. So Travion Henderson could make some sense there. But I'd say by default, Nick Emanuwari, you're going to twist my arm. Okay. And let's just continue moving forward. I'm going to go with him as the pick.
Okay. I was going to say, you're on the clock at that point. I'm just kidding. Let's see.
The clock has expired.
They actually have Kevin Winston at 29, which is higher than Nick. So
deservedly so.
Absolutely, completely agree.
So, yeah, I mean Kevin Winston, we've also seen. Well, I don't know how like if this is somebody's specific big board.
Wow,
or a consensus
67.
Big board, because like we also saw Kevin Winston in a PFF board recently in the 90s.
Yeah, they updated the DBs.
Okay.
So
is this a consensus?
This is no, it's Trevor Sycamore.
Okay,
it's Trevor Sycamore's board.
Just making sure.
So Nick, it is
67 seems kind of.
That's
crazy.
low. I know. Yeah.
Like based on.
I don't know how.
I don't know. Even though he's kind of risen a little high because of his
athleticism.
Combine, I don't think he's come close to being a
Top 50 in every board should be pretty consensus, in my personal opinion.
right.
So yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah, we'll jump that. We got 2 picks left. Now let's jump
You're up.
to the Super Bowl teams, and I'm going to start with Kansas City. I think offensive line took a hit this past year. Left tackle obviously just was plug and play by committee.
Right.
Nobody was panning out. Kingsley Suamataia right now is projected as a starting guard. Trey Smith is a elite guard that they franchise tagged and then are going to extend. Juwan Taylor is not for long, but probably by default has to be there for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Humphrey, best center, arguably in football. Do you flirt with the guard here?
I think so.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that there's a guy that could play both guard and tackle if needed.
So you're you leaning towards Donovan Jackson?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking. He's slightly behind Tyler Booker.
Right now.
Yeah, you'll have to tune in for our final big board next week. But Donovan Jackson, like you said, Josh Simmons went down midseason, and he slipped over to the left side and did not miss a beat and led that unit to a national championship and did a great job doing it. So if they're going to kick back Kingsley to try a second try, or if they're going to say, Donovan, it's your turn. They did sign Jalen Moore, who has some experience as a swing tackle. I thought it was a bad investment.
It's a lot of money for someone that hasn't done it yet.
Exactly. So, but either way, I think it gives you another attempt or depth piece to try, because you also did lose Joe Tooney, which I know he didn't do great as a in his attempt at left tackle, but he's been a Hall of Fame guard now as 4-time Super Bowl champion, and they need to replace that, which is a big thing. So Donovan Jackson, positional flexibility, it was a sore need, obviously, that stuck out in the Super Bowl. So I think that's the way to go here.
I like it. Last one. And I'm not going to take a ton of time. We're just going to talk about how the wide receiver position would be a luxury pick.
Yeah.
Of course, that would be fun. But AJ's signed through 2030. Devontae Smith signed through 2029. Okay. Edge, they lost Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat. They added Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari. Not really the same caliber, in my opinion. And then at the defensive line spot, they did lose Milton Williams, and their best starter right now is one of their starters is Jomo, who was a 2023 7th, who has played really well. Maybe could be an upgraded spot here. Also adding rotational pieces with Jordan Davis because he gets tired. That's always something I think is good. I'm going to go edge, and I'm going to go Donovan Ezraku, and we're just going to take good players. I almost thought Shamar Stewart, just for the fact that this is the type of team he could go to and possibly get the most out of him because of his, upside. Plus, he wouldn't be the starter most likely. Jalix Hunt's been playing well. So that would be my only thoughts. But Donovan Ezraku is ready to play right now. Second in sacks this last year. So that's the pick. And I think it's, someone will fall to them is how I look at it. And they're going to get the best player available at that point, and they're going to be really happy. So.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with that. They're in another position where it's a luxury because they have, right now I'd say the best roster in football.
Yes.
Even after the departures that they had. But I mean, they lost a safety. Well, there's a safety on the board that we wouldn't hurt our feelings if was off the board. They lost Mekhi Becton at right guard. Wouldn't bat an eye if they went with a Tyler Booker or like a future replacement for a Lane Johnson, like a Josh Connerly or something of that nature. Basically, the only thing I'm truly ruling out is, running back, receiver.
Fair.
And other than that, like any of these guys, pick any edge you want, pick any safety you want, guard, tackle, offensive lineman, what have you. It's just basically they're not going to invest in anything else, or they can invest in anything really, and it wouldn't work.
Problem is Tyler Booker just does not fit this team at all. And so that would be one of my biggest complaints if they did go that way, because he just doesn't make sense
also,
there.
I didn't
But
know if
otherwise,
Becton as a right guard was going to fit. And
he was a good athlete coming out. We see some issues with that with Tyler Booker, is he cannot move. But downhill running schemes, he's going to be good. So I'm going to say that that's kind of my only, if you're going to go with a guy, it would be Donovan Jackson, but he's just picked. So Donovan Ezraku's the answer to me. We're gonna pick him. Last pick of the draft. It's gonna analyze. I don't even know how we did. We can look. Let's see how they graded us. Some of them are gonna be bad, I bet. Oops. Okay, cool. They didn't grade it. That's fine.
Because we have all 32 teams.
Yeah, they had too much. So. But let me stop sharing. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. That was probably 2 hours. Easily 2 hours, right? Oh, on the dot. We're gonna finish before. So yeah, right. No, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. If you're still here hanging out with us, it's always fun to do these. Like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, like being the GM and getting to sit in the chair and talk about just like some of the options of moving up and moving down, and of course being a team that has either no issues or a bunch of issues is always a fun thing to just kind of sort through.
Yeah, we can't thank you guys enough. Please like, comment, subscribe. We're so close to 250, and we're going to, if not break that, exceed that on draft night. Draft is 10 days away from this recording. We're recording on Monday, releasing later this week. But we got our final big board coming out next week. We got our final mock that we've got to figure out what we're going to do. Whole lot of stuff that basically the evaluation is done, and now it's just what's our putting pen to paper with ink and no eraser. That's what we got to end up doing, and it's a whole lot of fun. We can't thank you guys enough for growing. This is going to be the full circle moment because last year our first live stream was the draft. Could have been better, but I think based on the feeling of conversation, and I think it went really well, but, technology issues, there was delays and stuff like that.
Things we didn't know.
Happen, and we weren't nearly as good doing this as we are now, and it's going to only grow from here, and we want this community to grow as well. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Please join it. You got the live stream if you in our page on Twitter. It's bookmarked, all that stuff. Please come and have the fun with us as we go through the 3-hour first round of the NFL draft on Thursday night next week.
Absolutely. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us today, and tell us what you liked and disliked, of course. I think that's important. Like, subscribe, do those things. That's always fun.
We do. So you're the GM for your team. Tell us what you want to do based on who was available at your pick. We want to hear it all, and then tell us what you didn't like, and we'll have a conversation.
For sure.
Because it's all about discussions here.
Yep. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Later.